Today's story is How Beautiful with Mud. You'll find this on pages 389 to 396. All right, so a little background on this story. This is an autobiography, and we can tell this because the author is Hildegard Dolson, and the main character is also Hildegard. And this is told from a first-person point of view. So Hildegard is telling a story from her childhood. And as you read the story, you notice that Hildegard is constantly trying to purchase things that will make her more beautiful. She buys beauty magazines, reads all the articles, and is convinced to buy things that she thinks will make her more attractive. So her main motive in this story is vanity. She wants to be beautiful and desirable, right? Which is a little bit funny because she seems to be probably a teenager. Okay, so what are her character flaws? First of all, pride or vanity. And then we notice in the story she lies to her parents and she doesn't seem to feel terribly bad about it, right? She never confesses that she was lying. So both of those are big character flaws. And the brother is a decent part of the story. So she has been saving up. She reads this magazine article and reads about this beauty clay. And the whole story is kind of suspicious, right? So anybody who thinks carefully would realize that this is all made up. But she saves up her allowance and she buys this beauty clay. And then she puts it on her face and she lets it sit and then it gets stuck, right? It's really hard and stuck on her face. So her brother comes home and it seems like the two normally don't have a good relationship. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. But he sees that she's in this predicament and it says whether it was the intensity of my threat, because she threatens him, you'd better not tell anybody. It says whether it was the intensity of my threat or latent chivalry. This is like a gentleman behavior, right? And latent means it doesn't usually appear. And so it's like it was way down deep inside him, and now he's feeling bad for her, right? And so when she goes and she tells her parents this lie, and he comes up with the lie, right? He says, you should tell them that you've been frostbitten, right? Because now she finally gets the beauty clay off her face and her face is super red. And she has to have a good explanation of why she did this, right? Or what happened. So he comes up with the idea to tell the parents that she's been frostbitten and she had to rub her face with snow. So when she tells this story, the father at first, it says, my father reacted cynically, right? And he thinks at first that maybe the brother did something to her and that's why he's being helpful, right? That she's trying to cover up for him. So she makes up a story. It says, I proceeded to build him up as my sole rescuer. So her brother came to her rescue and helped her out, right? And even as she's telling the family this, her parents are very, very suspicious. Against this new setup of brother loves sister, they were suspicious, right? So it seems like their relationship is usually not very good. They don't get along very well, but in this particular situation, the brother comes to her rescue and tries to help her out. All right, so sarcasm is mock praise. When you say something that sounds nice to someone, but you are actually mocking them, right? You don't really mean it. And it's a type of verbal irony. So there's several periods of sarcasm in this story. For example, I had important things as beauty clay on my mind. So she's saying that as she's thinking about this beauty clay, it's extremely important matter. And think about the author is writing this as an adult, talking about herself as a child. So if you look back on some ways that you were kind of foolish as a child, you might have a kind of a funny tone or use some sarcasm, right? And then she said, as she's waiting for the beauty clay to dry, it would give me more lovely moments of anticipation. She's being sarcastic here. And then as she talks about her brother, when she makes up the story about how he rescued her, in this new role of big brother Galahad. And Galahad was a famous knight known for being a gentleman, right? So she's painting him as this knight. So this is a bit sarcastic. Okay, and the author's tone, so she's talking about herself as a young child, right, or as a teenager. So she has kind of a sympathetic attitude toward herself, but also you can tell she thinks that she was foolish for all her beauty products, right? So kind of sympathetic, but foolish. Okay. This story also has a lot of idioms, and these are phrases that often cannot be taken literally, right? She said, I had my mind's eye on something. So this is just thinking, like she's thinking about getting something. She really wants it, right? It took me only a flash to realize, a second, right? It was really quick. This was getting me nowhere fast. So you're not going anywhere, right? He gave me a dirty look, kind of a mean look, right? Okay. This story is especially full of hyperbole or exaggeration. So, for example, after the briefest possible bout with a toothbrush and washcloth. So, this a bout is like a fight, right? So, she's saying kind of she had a fight with her toothbrush and washcloth. Um, Seems like she doesn't usually take special care when she's getting ready for bed. And then she says, you can tell she reads a lot of beauty magazines, so she's taking these phrases out of beauty magazines. I would also be flower fresh, fastidious, and dainty. So these are probably straight out of a magazine. A triple threat virtue, obviously prized above pearls by the entire male sex, as depicted in the Ladies' Home Journal. So she's saying that these things are something that every man wants out of a lady, right? Which is a huge exaggeration. Probably most guys don't care about what beauty products women wear, right? And then when she's talking about the beauty clay, she says, the miraculous substance called beauty clay, the words enveloped me in rapture. So she's just amazed when she reads this story about beauty clay. And when you read the story about beauty clay, if you're thinking carefully, you'll realize this whole advertisement is just made up, right? It's ridiculous. But she just drinks this all in and she accepts it as truth. But all as she's telling this, it's all very exaggerated. The last thing in the world I wanted to do was talk or smile. So this is when she's got the beauty clay on her face and it's like hard as a rock now, right? And she can't talk or smile. But when she says the last thing in the world I wanted, that's an exaggeration. My face was so rigid that even my eyeballs felt yanked from their sockets. So again, an exaggeration. With haste born of horror. So this is when she hears her brother shouting downstairs. She was out of the bathroom and she's now really afraid, so she runs back to the bathroom. My facial muscles were still cast in stone. So it's very hard, but it's not actually like stone, right? So she's exaggerating. And then when her brother sees her, the mental impact on Bobby was terrific. To do him justice, he realized almost instantly that this was his own sister and not, as he first had imagined, a sea monster. So obviously he didn't think it was a sea monster in the bathroom, right? And then she says, to my heavenly relief. So she's relieved, but it's not heavenly relief, right? And as she's talking about how she splashed water on her face, she says it was like playfully or splashing playfully at the rock of Gibraltar. So think about like splashing water at a mountain, thinking that the mountain is going to go away, right? So this is a simile and kind of an exaggeration. Metaphors. Climbed to the bottom rung of the honor roll. This is also ironic. So when you talk about climbing the ladder, you're becoming more and more successful, but she's gone down on the list of honor students at her school to the very bottom. Okay, and then made a beeline. This is to go straight to something, right? My illusions had been cracked wide open. So she had these imaginations of how beautiful she would look once she used this beauty clay. And instead, it's just like how she had to crack open the beauty clay from her face. Her imagination of how beautiful she would be is cracked open. And then irony. Instead of body beautiful, I looked like body boiled. So she thought this would make her beautiful. Instead, she looks ridiculous and she's all red, right? And then the end of the story, when she's very angry about how deceptive the advertisement is, she comes to the conclusion that her revenge is going to be someday she's going to write advertisements. Okay, and a few other phrases I wanted to mention. The doorbell rang again and again, jangling at my conscience. So somebody had come to the door and is ringing the doorbell, and she isn't going to answer it, and it's kind of making her feel guilty, right? And then at the end, or when she comes down and her mom sees her face is very red, she's concerned that she's sick. And she says, I was burning up, but not with fever. And so she's burning up with anger over the beauty clay and how it didn't work. All right, also illusions. An illusion is when an author refers to some other work, right? And she says at the beginning about the beauty clay and the story, this beauty was more than skin deep. So you may have heard of this phrase, beauty is not only skin deep. So it's saying that beauty is more than just what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. But she's kind of messing up the phrase, right? Because what's important to her really is the outside, not the inside. And then she says later in the story, all hope abandoned. And this is a reference to a book written by Dante, and it's called Dante's Inferno, and it's referencing a very serious situation. So she's taking this really serious reference to talk about her beauty clay experience. And at the very end, she says, with the hot and cold fury of a woman stung. And she's referring to a phrase from a William Congreve's play, The Morning Bride, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, saying that the scariest type of anger is an angry woman, right? And so she is kind of referencing that play. All right, guys, I hope you understood everything, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.